Welcome to the Hunting Beast Report, a live video podcast with Dan Infalt and host Jeremy Gillespie.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Outdoors. The off-season's a great time to rehab your gear, so head on over to Stealth Outdoors at www.stealthoutdoors.com to pick up some climbing stick wraps, cam buckle covers, platform cable wraps, or stealth strip rolls for all of your miscellaneous silencing needs. Today's show is also made possible by Hunting Beast Gear, innovators in mobile hunting gear and the designers of the Beast Sticks and Beast Stand. Check out the latest products at www.huntingbeastgear.com. And now, on to the podcast. All right, we're live, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Bob Foulkrod. Bob, how you doing tonight?
Yes, sir. Doing great. Yep, great to be on.
Yeah, I want to thank you. We've got a lot of people that are excited to hear from you. You got a lot of great stories, and we want to cover some of those tonight. Dan had the idea to get you on, and I was familiar with you, but not as familiar as maybe I should have been, so I looked up some information on you and some incredible hunts over the years, so definitely excited to talk to you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I think I'm the old dog in the industry. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty darn close to it. Yeah.
So
one of the last survivors of a great era.
I'm sorry?
You're one of the last survivors of a great era. Things have sure changed since those days.
Yeah. I hope to tell you they've changed a whole lot, and I'm not really sure it's for the best, but I guess it's like everything today. It's like I lived in a fantastic time, and watching Lonesome Dove and old Woodrow looked up at Gus, and I go, "That's been quite a party, hasn't it?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that might be a good way to kick it off, Bob. Let's talk about your home state, Pennsylvania, and how whitetail hunting has changed in Pennsylvania specifically from when you got started to today.
Well, I guess, back in the day, I mean, it was all about family traditions. People got together, they did Pennsylvania drives, and it was, back then it was like everybody was worried about, taking a deer. And at the same time, I think Pennsylvania was the third largest industry that we had. And it's not even on the radar now. I mean, everybody from Maine, New Hampshire, New Jersey, every farm wife that had a place for somebody to sleep. I mean, it was crazy days. It sounded like the Vietnam War going on the first day of deer season. It was so exciting. And it just keep going backwards. There's a lot of things cause that, they select cut anymore. We can't hunt on everybody's property like we used to. And so you can't put your finger on just on one thing. They went to a 3-point, 4-point rule in a lot of areas, whether people believe it or not, probably 80 to 90% of the people that hunt in Pennsylvania have to hunt on state forest or state game lands, and now we're telling them what they can hunt and what they can't hunt. So I don't know. A lot of things change. Everybody's in a pop-up blind or ground blind, and I guess if you went back into my grandfather's day, if you put him on a stream and he threw a fly or a minnow over there next to that rock. The reason he threw it over there, there's supposed to be a fish there. If you put a trapper going down the same stream or in the woods, that the trap was put there because that's where you're going to catch something. Somebody set up a stand inside the woods, that's where it should be because he was going to kill something. And then my depression came in and my father's era came in, and and you lost a lot of woodsmanship, and then my era came in, and you lost another. Now we do TV shows and write articles on how to tell people where to put the fly or where to put the tree stand, and the modern days has definitely changed from when I grew up as a kid. Yeah.
Are you still hunting Pennsylvania quite actively?
Yeah. I mean, I got a bunch of grandkids and stuff that wait for Grandpa to take them out, and and of course we call Grandma's condo or in a condo, nice and heated and comfortable, and waiting for a deer to come in the food plot. Because, gosh sakes, if I walk through the property and I'd be pushing them on somebody else's, or I live right next to state forest, so I'd push them on the state forest. So basically, we got 2 food plots, and the whole rest of the property is nothing but sanctuary. We might go in there and look for sheds, but other than that, even if we have to track a deer, we wait till dark to go in there and track a deer. So we try to give them as much area and safety as they possibly can.
What about your opinion on anything that's changed for the better, Bob, since you got going? That's a loaded question. I mean, I reminisce on the old days. I mean, when you learn woodsmanship, where to put the tree stand, setting hours into it. I mean, I remember the first time I read the articles, well, you're supposed to set in the tree stand all day long. So I tried that, and I realized I was setting at the wrong time of year, so I break things down into sections. What are the deer doing the first when the season still opens? They're feeding, and then you get into the pre-rut and the rut, and so I'm not sure I'm happy with the way things have changed. We got bigger deer, but we're losing numbers of people all the time, so that's not really a good thing either. So I guess I'm from the old school. I hate change. You got trail cameras now that people put up, and if they find a deer, then obviously the posted property comes in. I think the jealousy factor is worse. I thought it was bad when I was coming up, but I think the jealousy factor in deer season today is off the charts. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, our last.
I think if I had to think of one good thing, I would think maybe that you see a little more family hunting together in recent years. You see a lot more women hunting, but yeah, the negatives outweigh the positives.
Yeah, well, we do a thing back here in Pennsylvania. We got a flintlock season, and after everything is closed, actually it opens up the day after Christmas, and there's a lot of missing, a lot of flintlocks that don't go off, but we got a lot of farmland, and we basically do silent drives, and it's we all get together, and we have lunch and supper and stories to be told, and it's never about how big a deer is. In fact, I think the first time I went up, I was the only one that actually shot a deer, and last year, the year before, I think there was 3, and we're talking does now. But man, it's just a fun time. We got right from the kids and women, and I mean, it's just it brings you back to the old days, the traditional days. Yeah.
It's pretty cool that you're still enjoying shooting does and small bucks after all the huge accomplishments you've made in shooting giant bucks and lots of them, and you're still having fun back home shooting these smaller deer. I love to hear that.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't think it ever goes away when it gets into your blood. I mean, I think I shot my first deer. Geez, I can't tell that story, but way back when, I think the age was 12, and I think I might have been a little younger than that. But I shot a doe, and I mean, I was hooked, and then, my mom and dad would take me out, and then I got into archery, which was a recurve, and I mean, it just, I would practice just like the old book said. You got to hit a pipe plate at 20 yards. Well, I missed deer at 10 yards, 5 yards. I got closer throwing my bow at them than I did shooting at them sometimes. And but the compound came out, and I actually got hooked on it. I enjoyed shooting the compound, and then it was the gloves came off. Then I just I was hooked in. I was shooting everything I could possibly get into it. I started deer camps, bear camps, caribou camps just for archery, and it's just never looked back. And what people didn't realize, like a lot of them would say, well, why'd you get into rifle hunting or gun hunting? And I was really actually having shoulder problems. And at the same time, my dad was, I wanted to spend more time with him. So I put him into a crossbow. I don't think he ever killed one, but he sure did a lot of missing. He was an excellent shot with a rifle, but crossbow, when deer come out within 10, 12 yards of him, he'd get the shake so bad he couldn't hardly stand it. But so I picked up a gun, and because I wanted to spend time hunting with him, and then of course doors opened up and to do more shows, and archery's still my love. But I like hunting with just about everything you can pick up. In fact, this year down in Texas, I shot a I don't know, 140, 145 class buck down there with a flintlock pistol, So that was, and then 5 or 6 days later, I shot one in that same category with my dad's flintlock. It was his birthday, and he died 23 years ago. But I guess when we're still talking about him, he's still alive in memories. That's for sure.
Right.
Well, Bob, let's talk about something that you're really well known for, which was something that you called the obsession quest. And we're going to get into the details here. But the first question I have is, how the heck did you get the lady in your life to agree to let you go hunting for 5 years?
Well, when I actually started at when my dad had died, I was going kind of through withdrawals, and I actually there was no rhyme or reason to do the next TV show. I mean, I would just pick out an animal and go for it. And I opened up the Safari Club magazine, and there's a list of 80 some animals that was on there. They break things down more than the Boone and Crockett or North America 29. In North America 29, there's one whitetail. In Safari Club, they break it down into 7 species, and there's more caribou, more bears, and everything. And I go, well, that would be a good goal. And so actually asked my wife, I said, you're going to be here in 5 years? And she just kind of looked at me, and I said, I won't do it if you're not going to be here. But I couldn't have done it without her, because she's back home keeping the fires going and booking airplane tickets. And I mean, it was a marathon. There's no doubt, 275 to 300 days on the road. And actually, when you came home, you really wasn't home, because you was taking, where am I going to go next, and getting permits and things like that. So yeah, it was a marathon for sure.
And
I got your book sitting in front of me here, the Quest book, and I was looking through it, and when I got to the couple pages in there, the way you have it listed is by the years, and that's the remarkable thing. I look at a year and I see like year 2, and you got desert mule deer, Coues deer, desert bighorn sheep, Osceola turkey, Rio Grande turkey, polar bear, seal, giraffe, leopard, lion, rhino, Atlantic walrus, boar, Tool elk, Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep, Western Canadian moose, Arctic island caribou, Greenland muskox, Shiras moose, Rocky Mountain mule deer, Northwestern whitetail, Marco Polo sheep, ibex. That's 1 year. 1 year of hunting. You shot all those animals. And you did this for 5 years straight until you shot how many animals? Was it 80? Or was it more than that?
Yeah, there's approximately 100 there. And
that's crazy.
I want to be me when I grow up.
We all want to be you when we grow up. And you do that later in life too. I mean, I couldn't imagine at my age, and you were probably about my age when you did that. I can't imagine.
I shot my first sheep when I was 50, and I've got 20, 24 sheep now and under my belt. So yeah, well, that keeps you in shape. Sheep shape keeps you in shape. I get a chance to enjoy my grandkids more and spend more time with them, and actually can take them hunting and do all the things they want to do, whether it's fishing or hunting or whatever. So yeah, so I think that quest keeps me in shape, you know. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of animals on that list, Bob. I'm curious to know which animal was the hardest for you to get and why. Was it a permit thing or a physical challenge, or maybe two or three? What were some of the toughest animals on the list?
Well, it looking at the list when I went down through it, at that time I'd only ever seen two wolverines in my whole life, and they were running across the tundra, and I couldn't have shot them because I had a bow with me at the time. You know, and I go, holy heck, how am I going to get that? So talking to different outfitters, and the next thing they said Lance Goodwin up in British Columbia, his dad used to live trap them and transport them here and there and stuff like that. So I got a hold of him, and, you know, 3 years later, we're setting up there and actually filmed it. Well, that's one thing on the quest. Everything was on film. And we did that. We did 100 consecutive animals in a row without getting skunked on anything. That I'm even impressed on that, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had a wolverine, a wolf, and a lynx all back to back, which I thought was going to be hardest to get on film. And then the physical hunts, obviously, you're looking at you know, a sheep or something like that. That can be demanding at times, and then you're going to go from the Arctic where you're hunting polar bear to over to Africa and jaguars, and so you're staying in igloos to staying in a hammock and back to staying in a pup tent on a sheep hunt. And Russia was exciting because as a kid growing up, we used to have Russian drills back in Facet School or Gillette School, and we knew what to do if the teachers hollered the Russians to come. We'd run down in the boiler room, and you know, there stood a custodian or a teacher with a shotgun in her hand. Maybe we should take that same lesson and maybe put some of those custodians or teachers with guns in their hands, so we know what to do if some uninvited person comes in and tries to shoot some of these kids today, you know, and go back to basics. But that could be a seminar by itself. But yeah, so Russia was extremely, I mean, we're 16,000 feet, hunting Marco Polo and ibex, you know, yeah, that was the last thing I ever thought I would be, especially as, you know, being a kid in grade school in Gillette, Pennsylvania, thinking about hunting Marco Polo or ibex, you know.
Yeah.
What about in that time you hunted a lot of big predators? What was the scariest predator, or any scary predator encounters, or maybe just scary encounters in general, as far as getting in bad weather and like sheep country or something? Any good stories from that time?
Well, we got a rhino that about run over me at there's shot him at point blank. His legs went out from under him. He comes by and slides and knocks the camera over. And obviously when you're hunting something like an elephant that's right in the jungle with them, and you know, at 6, 7, 8 yards, or a lion that's charging you, that's always exciting. People always ask you when you get something like that coming after you, so, you know, did you ever crap your pants? And I said, normally when I get in a situation like that, and I've been in a lot of situations where I shouldn't have, you know, basically come home from it, I said, well, my buttocks get tight, and they went, how tight is it? I said, you can't even put an ice pick up, it's so tight, you know. But you know, it gets embarrassing sometimes when you're sitting on an airplane and all of a sudden you start to relax, you know. But yeah. But, yeah, back in the old days. Go ahead.
My favorite hunt with you is when you is an old one that goes way back. Your first polar bear.
Yeah,
that hunt you can find that on YouTube, and it looked like you had an Eskimo friend that was with you, and you just handed him a rifle and were like, "Cover me," and you're pretty damn lucky he hit that bear. It was like 8 yards from you when he hit it.
Yeah, actually, it was really the start of the videos. Bob McGuire was doing the videos, and I mean, that was back when you had the you know, the deck on the back, and I mean, he worked night and day keeping the tapes warm, and I think it was on the 17th, 18th day, we had a bear come into the igloo, and we put the dogs on to him the next morning, and the race was on. And I had actually signed a release that I wouldn't get closer than 50 yards from him. And Bob says, "You're going to try to shoot that bear at 50 yards?" I said, "Just a piece of paper. Don't worry about it." I said, "We'll worry about it when we get there." So you can see I'm sitting there with Joe Nestor, which has got a rifle, and he goes, "There, okay, we got the bear," and he's in that pressure ridge area. He says, "Take your bear." And I said, I see if I can get a better angle here. So I just kind of made a half moon and started walking into him, and he started to come up at me one time, and he settled back down, and I drew the bow, and I could hear McGuire holler, "You're standing in front of him." So I had to move to the side, and I shot, and he kind of rolled around, and he went down, and I don't know if he was playing possum or what the heck he was doing. And I come back and to Joe, and he wasn't talking. He was pretty upset at the time. And I said, "I'm going to go on the other side, see if I can climb up there and just put another arrow into him to make sure." And forgot about the wind and stuff. And I got on that side, and that's when that bear came up over, and I turned around and to run, and he landed where I was standing. I fell down, and Joe had hit him and knocked him down, and Joe's gun jammed at that point. And so I stood back up, and the bear's still limping toward me and trying to get in. I put another arrow into his chest, and yeah, that was kind of a jump start, because that was when the SHOT Show was going, and there was no ATA at that time. And they go, "Look at this crazy guy," And I think the following year, I shot a black bear that was coming up over the bank at me. He had actually had a caribou kill, and I left the camera guys on the other side of the river, and I said, "I'm going to go stand there. When I see that bear going down, I'm going to get in his trail and shoot him coming up." And he's coming up the bank at me, and I realized I don't have a shot because his head was down there. I hissed at him, and he picked his head up a little bit, and I tucked the arrow into his chest. It kind of rolls back. They come right back up at me, and I drew again and hit him, and now he's like 6 or 7 yards or steps from me, and I hit him in the head. You can watch the arrow hit him in the contour of the head, and it bent and went right up in the air, which we could do a whole seminar on broadheads. And it fell on back of him, and he turned around and ran down to the river. His back feet are going up through his head, and I mean, he's running. I swung onto him, and I don't know, 30, 35 yards, put an arrow through him. You can see the arrow go through him, hit him in the water, and started to come back up, and I was ready to hit him again, and he died and went down. So we had a lot of those kind of videos every year at the SHOT Show. Somebody was watching, go, "I wonder what this crazy son of a gun's going to bring to us this year," So that was kind of a jump start,
Speaking of that, Scott Buckley told me that I should ask you about you killing a black bear with your hands or with a hatchet or something like that.
Well, we started back in the days when I started the bear camp. I bought a S-wing axe, and people said, "What are you going to do with that?" And I said, "Well, you can't have a pistol or a shotgun or anything because it's a bear camp, archery only." So I said, "If the bear gets up, I'll knock him in the head with it." But actually, I got the axe I cut a pole. Once we got back in there and got a bear down, I tie him down, and the guys who could carry him out, and I would chop a way out and make a trail for him. It's a terrible way to carry a bear out of the woods, but it makes great photographs, So one day I'm pushing this bear pretty hard, and he's, of course, back then, we had big broadheads. They were long, and they were, big, and you put a hole into him almost any place, and he's going to die fairly quick. And so I'm pushing this bear to one night, and of course the clients are like 15, 20 yards in back of you, and this bear snapping his teeth at me, and I got him in a blowdown. I said, "Somebody come up and hold this light." I said, "I'll go knock him in the head." And they kept saying, "No, leave him be, leave him be." And the bear fell over dead right there. And I said, "Well, I'll show you how a mountain man kills this damn thing." So I run in there, and I'm hollering and screaming, and I come dragging this 125-pound bear out. So that's how that's done. Well, that was great for bookings because everybody had to go hunt with this crazy guy, especially out there watching the polar bear and everything. So I think it was, I don't know, a year or two later, we're tracking the bear the next day, And the bear gets up and starts to run down through the woods. Of course, they heard all these rumors and stories, and they said, well, get him. So I'm half-fat chasing this bear. I said, man, I hope that son of a gun don't turn. And about that time, he turned around and come back at me. And I remember that time I took the blade and I run it right down. I ruined the guy's skull, but I killed the bear, and I'm dancing around like a drunken Indian sitting there. And I go, that's how that's done. I didn't want anybody to see my legs were shaking, you know. And so broadhead kept getting smaller, so bears got more alive. Of course, I was getting braver all the time. I was on 6 or 7 bears that I had knocked out, you know, and finished them off. And I was on this one bear, and I was a little bitty 75 grain broadhead. I won't even mention the name, but anyway, I couldn't get the bear to stop. I'm chasing him through the woods, and I said, I got to go back and get the guys out into the tree stands. And so I come back for him tomorrow, and I actually had a guy from down home here. Next day, we get up there, and I'm tracking him, and I went down through the creek, and I said, that son of a gun is fresh. He goes, yeah, right there he is. So I'm chasing him. And I got up to him, got him to stop, and I reached up with that axe and bumped him on the head, but I missed him. I hit him on the end of the nose. Then it got interesting because he just reached up and grabbed me that quick, and now I can't remember whether he bit me and I stabbed him or stabbed him and bit me, but we were keeping score, and I finally got the knife into his heart, and after he bit a hole through my leg and almost broke my kneecap, so I cut my pant leg off. I want to see how bad I was hurt. I skinned the bear out. I'm back in the woods, probably a couple miles, and the guy sat there and he goes, holy geez, you stabbed my bear 16 times. I reached over and stabbed him 2 more times. He said, what'd you do that for? And I said, because he bit me 18 times, you know? Yeah.
You had to win that score, right?
Yeah. So we got in there. I was kind of embarrassed how dirty I was. So I took a shower and went into the North Bay Hospital. And so they were afraid that infection would get into the bone marrow and it would either kill you or, you know, they take your leg off. So I paid attention after that. But yeah. So Davy Crockett did. I figured I could do it too. Yeah.
Those are great stories. Those are awesome. Yeah. Well, two more questions for me, Bob, and maybe Dan's got more for you, but one's an easy one that it sounds like there's a lot of great stories in the book. So if people aren't familiar with you, where can they pick the book up at?
Well, they can order it. You know, it's Bob Foulkrod, 50 Foulkrod Lane at Troy, Pennsylvania, 16947. It's you know, $40, and that includes the shipping, and that's how they can wind up getting it if they'd like to read a interesting book. I know a lot of people don't read today, but man, if I tell them nothing else, read the last 2 pages because it breaks you down into what life is really about when you're gone. You know? Yeah.
And then the other question I had, obviously, it sounds like 100 or close to 100 animals. I thought I read somewhere that the taxidermy for that, is that all in one location now?
Yeah. It's I already had 100 or so animals in my lodge, and actually my wife Sheila says maybe Bass Pro would you know, put them down there for the world to see. So we basically donated all the animals to Bass Pro. They're in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So when you walk in there, they kind of rotate them around. But yeah, just about everything in there is something that I've taken. You know, so that's a good thing. When I'm dead and gone, people will be able to remember all the things that was, you know, that you'd taken, and, you know, life size in an elephant. That's quite a deal. But, you know, everything was life size, you know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I was reading in your book what Ted Nugent wrote about you, and he said that you know, something to the effect of when the crap goes down and everybody starts fighting, that you're the one man he wants on his side. With that in mind, you know, who are some of the greatest people that you got to hunt with and got to meet over the years? I know you've been with some really cool people. Who do you consider?
You know, obviously, Ted Nugent was one. Walter Payton was another one, the football player, which that's a story by itself. He called up and wanted to go on a hunt, and I didn't know who he was because I don't follow football, you know, Barkowski. There's a lot of great guys, and they were great guys too. I mean, Walter Payton was a perfect gentleman in caribou camp, a lot of fun to be with, and he had some stories too. But I mean, yeah. You know, one thing that I would like to mention is people back when we did articles and it was just articles, somebody always looked through that article and made sure it was good, you know, for your kids to take it to school, or, you know, there was always an editor. The pictures had to be cleaned up, and then videos came out. And we had to learn through the videos too, you know, somebody, you know, what we should do, how long should an animal flop or fall down, you know, and, you know, try to keep it in ethical. But at the same time, there was a war going on between the videos and the magazines. One time there was three archery magazines and 3 rifle magazines. And so at the same time, more magazines started to come up, and so the manufacturers was putting money into the videos, and there was absolutely a war going on. One thing that videos did was they could see the camps, they could see the people. Obviously, they enjoyed me being on there because it went from videos to TV. But everything that we've ever done, we've always had an editor. And one thing that's going on today, you're seeing Facebook and things like that. The animals aren't, you know, being represented good. The tongues are hanging out. You got blood, you know, and something. You know, I always said, you know, you should be able to give those pictures or Facebook or whatever. Let them take them to school, and out of respect, you're trying to make that animal look as good as possible because you never know who's watching it. I always use the word kill. I don't believe in using the word harvest. I harvest corn, cotton, apples. I kill something, but we do it out of respect, you know. So that's some of the things that I believe is going. I don't know how many times through hunting season I'll take a picture of it, clean it back up, send it back to them, saying this is the way it really should be, because really nobody's really went in except just a handful of people. You know, saying this is how you should really present an animal, you know. So that's some things. And there's some good people. There's Judd Cooney out there. You had the Winslows on here not too long ago. A lot of respect for those guys. Winslows, the only thing Gene and Barry we ever bumped heads on was the crossbow. They were totally against crossbows. And but there was 2 guys that never threw me in under the bus. I mean, they did their thing. They hunted hard. They had the woodsmanship and everything to go with it. And I got a lot of respect for those people like that. Yeah, because there was a lot of jealousy going on in those days. But and I never understood. I learned more about people when I was guiding than I ever did about animals. Animals to me was fairly easy. They eat, sleep, drink, and they find a place to hide, and all you gotta do is figure out when they're eating, sleeping, finding a place to hide, and they're easy to kill.
Well, on that note too, I think we wanted to talk about some of what across your career. What are some of the accomplishments that you're most proud of? Whether that's a specific animal or relationship, or when you look back, what are things that you're real proud of?
Some of the companies that I work for, Gore-Tex, Outdoor Adventures, the TV shows. I represented some of the best companies in the world. I'm proud of that. I had a writer in here one time. It says, you've hunted all over the world and you've shot just about everything you buy a tag for. He said, what's the best hunt you was ever on? And I said, I lost my dad. I says, when he died, and I got a grandson, like 2 hours later, they had to put him in an incubator, and you jump start from that to when he was 6 years old. They started a program in Pennsylvania. So I got him a 410, and we said 20 yards. Well, he didn't get anything that year, and I bumped him up to a 20 gauge the following year. So he's 7 years old on turkeys. And I had taken him out of school in that morning, and the turkeys would always be someplace else, you know. So I'd take him back to school, and I have to sign him in. What happened? I said, "Oh, I missed the bus." You know, so the next day I went back and I missed the bus again. And so we have to work on missing that bus. And so the third day, him and I got a pair of jakes together. And so he's getting ready for school, and Grandma's printing a picture out. And when that picture came out of that printer, old Grandpa broke down and cried. There were so many memories there between him and missing my dad and everything like that. So I tell people that's probably the best hunt I was on, and every one of my grandkids, I've been fortunate enough to get them their first deer, and 3 of them got them at 5 years old, and my granddaughter killed hers when she was 6 years old and tracked it. In fact, this year she was 12 years old, and she wanted to gut her own deer, and I handed her a knife, and of course her mom had to do a lot of washing up and to get her cleaned up, but she was super proud of that. And then people have said, if you had one more hunt into you, where would you go? And I said, I'd go down in Grandma's condo right here in Pennsylvania, and I'd fill that shooting house up with all the kids and grandkids that we'd draw straws to see who's going to shoot next. Yeah.
For
It
sure.
sounds like you got your priorities in order.
Well, we hope so. We hope I can live a few more years and watch those grandkids and take a few more deer. And I mean, if I had, I get more satisfaction out of watching them. I tell us that, hell, the only thing I'm good for anymore is gutting and dragging. Yeah.
Well, teaching the next generation too, it sounds like.
Well, what good is all that knowledge if you don't pass it on? You got to pass on all the knowledge that you can. And anybody that's got time, I'll sit down and try to teach them. And I tell them, I said, get out of the pop-up blinds and get out in the woods and learn woodsmanship, see where that deer goes, after season, tracking back to where he's laying down. And I heard one, can't remember who, I think it was Barry Wenzel sat there and he said, you want to learn something, don't track him unless you shot him or something. Track him backwards and see where he's laying, see where he's bedded down. I know Dan likes to get in their bedding area. Now myself, I never get into a bedding area unless it's the last day. I shot a 174 one time, and I kept getting closer to him. That's the last day, and I actually put guys on the back end of the woods and just let their scent come drifting down through and to push that deer to me. But the only time I ever get in a deer's bedroom is on the last day. If I try to give them all the I always say it's basically go back to people's things. I walk in and my wife happens to be standing there next, and the neighbor's in the house, and I'm going to pay a little more attention to what's going on. And if I find them the next day sitting on the couch together, I'm really going to pay attention. If I find them in my bedroom, somebody's going to find a new place to lay down that night,
Yeah.
So I use the same strategy for white-tailed deer, I want him to feel safe, and I want to hunt him in his own habitat. And noise pollution is worse than scent pollution. Hunt him like a sniper. People get out and they have a conversation under tree stands, or when they leave the car, they leave the same place every day about the same time. And yeah.
Well, another question I had was, you've obviously hunted a ton of different species. Our audience here are mostly whitetail hunters. Got a lot of guys hunting turkey and a few guys hunting bears. So besides whitetail, bears, or turkeys, what do you think is a good species that's accessible to the average guy to get out there and if they want to try a different hunt?
Well, there's a lot of species. I mean, the thing about whitetails is that almost everybody, they can walk out their back door and hunt whitetails. I tell everybody, you get out west, the guys are hunting elk, and then you take somebody from Pennsylvania and they go out elk hunting and they try to do it on their own. The average is about 6 times. They got to make 6 trips before they're successful. And coming back from the west to hunt whitetails. So I'd say put all your animals in difficulty order if you're and then take them from there. I mean, yeah, I like hunting bears, so I'd tell somebody if you want to hunt bears, I would suggest you go on a baited hunt in a tree stand where you can watch them coming in, and then the next time, spot and stalk. Find a place where you can spot and stalk them, and you don't have to be honest with everybody, but honest with yourself. How did I do? Did I mess up? Or caribou was a fantastic stepping stone for archery hunters before they went on an elk hunt. So yeah, put all the animals in difficulty order. I mean, I love hunting whitetails. I mean, there's no bones about it. I love hunting still with archery equipment. I mean, I'll take the grandkids and get into a pop-up blind or shooting house because, we don't let them play video games in there, but we might play a game of checkers but not video games. But yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. Put that thing down and pay attention and see what's out there, but at the same time, tell the people to get in the woods. I mean, there's no experience. When I was running my bow school, I'd sit there and I'd walk down a trail and I go, hey, why is this stand here? Why am I going to do it? And people get lazy. Well, you can drop a tree and you make them, you can make them turn around that trail and keep going again. So yeah, I was awful proud of that bow school. I ran that for like 25 years. All the targets basically moved, then we even ran an advanced one where you come back in. I remember the one time we said, walking them down through the woods, tell me where you'd put a tree stand, and they said, I like this one. Well, let's keep moving. All of a sudden there's a 4-way intersection. I said, okay, we have a tree stand. Let's move down, and I'd circle up and I'd find the bedding area where the deer was actually bedded. And I would leave a guy there and was like 75 yards from where that tree stand was. And we'd make some artificial noises, clicking a release, or you climbing a ladder stand, or even having a conversation. I said, why would that mature deer get up and walk toward you when he already knows you're there? Those kind of things, just common sense type things to me, but not to a lot of people today. Mark your bow, mark everything on your bow, strings, cables, whatever. So if you're sitting in your tree stand and all of a sudden where you'd mow your wheels on both sides or your cams, and it's moved, okay, what's that going to do for you? Even I'm sitting in a tree stand. If I start to pick up that seat, I want that thing to stay right there. I don't want it to fall back down. If you get in and it squeaked when you first get in, it's going to, just because you sit there for 2 or 3 hours, it's going to squeak when the deer comes in. That's not bad luck. That's just poor preparation. All those little things, things like that. Play the wind, and the wind currents, play the wind currents, learn what wind currents do. You think you can take something in a bottle and spray yourself down a dozen times and become invisible? I got some swampland someplace for you to buy,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. How good is a deer's nose? I mean, oh my God, you can get into scientific, but I know if I throw one kernel of corn in an alfalfa field and he's coming across there and he picks it up, that's how good I defy you to smell one kernel of corn in an alfalfa field, but those deer can do it, Yeah. I do believe in UV. The material that we have out there today glows. You in a tree stand, and them deer can see you, elk can see you. I mean, I do believe in UV, and I do believe in camouflage in my boots. And I don't mean the color camouflage. I spray them down with coon urine every time I walk in and walk back out of the woods. Try not to touch any vegetation. All those kind of things that you learn through the years. Yeah.
Dan?
You got any questions from the audience?
Yeah, we do. So if one last thing here for me, Dan was talking to me about, you did a moose float hunt where it sounds like you got dropped off and floated back to your own truck or something. Could you give us the 5-minute story on that? That sounded pretty interesting.
That was a cool hunt.
Yeah, that was obviously filmed. I had 2 camera guys, and it was a do-it-yourself with 40-mile air. and they basically drop you off. It's a 100-mile float, and the first 50 miles nobody can get up through to, you know. So everything that you have is in 2 rafts. We went in very well prepared. You know, I've turned around, hadn't been in a raft a lot, so got on and watched some videos and things like that. And so we did the float trip, and I remember the one cameraman there, he says, well, what are you looking for? And I said, when I find it, I'll let you know. So my first moose trip first 3 moose trips I ever did on a float trip was, the old guys would sit there, you need 2 rafts, the front raft's calling, the second raft's going to get the shooting, and then you float right up till dark. Well, I mean, it turned into a survival. Trying to find a place to lay down and put a tent was almost impossible. So I changed the rules on it. So I go down to where we're going to leave a vehicle to where we're going to get ended up. And then the plane basically picks me up and flies me back to where they're going to drop us off. And now we got the GPSs, and I mean, look at that. That'd be a good place to camp. And, oh my goodness, there's a moose and there's the crossings. And so you can see everything that you want to see from the air. And I think that was the 3rd day I'd get up in the morning, we'd hunt in the morning, and we'd make a breakfast, and then we'd float down through. Cameraman said, what are you looking for? And I said, well, when I find it, I'll let you know. Well, on the 3rd day we came across, and there was a wallow from a moose, and there was crossings going both ways, and there was a beautiful place to camp. I said, we'll stay right here and we'll hunt this. And I said, it'll happen here. I killed him the first night. I mean, it was just a beautiful moose. And I think I was shooting a 300 short mag, and he came down, he laid down and rolled around, and he made a wallow, and he urinated on himself, and he got up and he kind of looked our way, and he said, now, did you get that? Well, just in case you didn't, let me do it again. So he did it. I mean, it was great footage. And he finally got up, started walking toward the river, and grunted at him a little bit, and he looked at me, and I pumped him once and turned around and started to go back. I hit him again, and he turned around and started coming back. I hit him again, and he fell right there. Beautiful. I mean, I walked the raft up, floated back to him, and we basically field dressed him right there, cut some logs, rolled him up and let the air get in under him and things like that. So, yeah, 100-mile float, do it yourself. It was a fantastic trip. A lot of memories there. Had some good camera guys. Charlie Colson, I mean, he did a lot of filming for me. It was great. Great memories right there.
So when I watched that hunt, what was interesting to me, I said, when I watched that hunt, what was interesting to me was the cool parts were like, you went and you parked your truck, I don't know, 50 miles downstream or something on the road, and had the plane come in and land on the road to pick you up. Like, to see cars coming and land on the road to pick you up. And
exactly.
When you got that moose, I remember you called a little bit when you found that wallow before you set up camp, and nothing came. So you went to set up camp, and you got a fire going, and then the moose came in while you weren't expecting it, kind of, right? And then the cameraman made you move because you were shooting through the fire and he couldn't film. That was a pretty cool hunt all the way around. And then too, when you're flying out there, the plane guy says, "Hey, you got to watch out for. There's a nasty part of the river," and you're like, "Well, we'll go around that. We'll carry the rafts around it." But I think you shot that moose above it, and then what it looked like on the video, you actually floated through there because you had the whole moose and stuff. You couldn't carry everything around, so you went right through the rapids and everything.
Well, we went through that part of it. That wasn't too bad. They called the kink is the bad part. If it had been the summertime and I didn't have rifles and all my gear and stuff like that, I would have loved to try to go on through it. But yeah, we portage around that, so we set up again, it took us 3 days to come out, by the time we got out there. But yeah, that was a fantastic, and 40-mile air out of Alaska. I've done drop camps where they done, caribou hunts and stuff like that. Yeah, they do a great job. And for the price of guided hunts today, for caribou or moose and stuff like that, you can do that fairly reasonable. And people say, how would you get into something like that? And I said, well, take the grandkids on, set up a tent, and learn how to cook over open fire and stuff. And then, again, even a deer hunt. I mean, go set up in the woods sometime and just, get out there and make it happen. And then come back and just saying, I could do this, People say, how do you take care of a white-tailed deer when he hits the ground? Well, how do you do an elk, Well, how do you do a moose? Well, it's the same thing. It starts with a squirrel. It's the same process. They just keep getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into some questions from the audience here. The first one is from Todd Liu. He says, oops, I lost it. Bob, do you still live on the Armenia Mountaintop? And he says, hi, I hope you and Sheila are enjoying your lives.
Absolutely. In fact, we the lodge that I had up there, where I ran the school and everything, we turned that into an Airbnb, and we moved down into basically the cabin that we had for the school, and we had it on downscaled a little bit. So if something happened to me, Sheila could take care of this a lot better. But I have never found any place any prettier than Armenia Mountain in Troy, Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful place to live, and we've certainly enjoyed our years here.
Oh, that's awesome. Next question is from John 91083. He says, Bob, what's your favorite state to hunt whitetails?
Well, there again, gosh sakes, there's so many great states and people were taking care of. Saskatchewan used to be fantastic when it was one deer and the outfitters had big areas, and then they allowed too many outfitters, and then they went to a 2 deer limit. And I mean, it used to be when you went to Saskatchewan, it was like, I'm looking for that 170, and then when they started getting too many outfitters and went to a 2 deer limit, it basically, now I'm looking for a 150, So I love hunting Texas, for a lot of reasons. It's a great time. It's normally the weather's good. My nephew's got a place down there. I mean, there's so many great states there to hunt whitetails today. Man, if I'm going to have one more whitetail hunting, I'm going to be hunting right here with one of the grandkids. Yeah.
Let's see. Just scrolling here. Mike asks, Bob, what's your favorite type of whitetail habitat?
Well, you get down into, Kansas, and you get the back in the coulees where they, you can see them, you can do some stalking. I love that. I love the big woods, trying to figure them out, where they're going, where they're bedding, what they're feeding on. People putting in food plots today. I'm as guilty as anybody. I mean, up here on the mountain, if you don't put a food plot in, there's not much for them to eat right now. I mean, we used to have a lot of apples, and I have very, very little acorns up here, so people were putting in food plots. So, anything like that, the habitat changes from almost every single state you hunt into. Yeah, that's a hard one to answer, but just a lot of people are putting in food plots and managing deer. And I always said, I'm against the 4-point rule for anybody that has to hunt on state forest, state game lands. If you own your own property, you can make up any rule you want. You're just saying, well, I don't want you to shoot anything less than an 8-point or 10-point or better than what you did last year. But I'm against the 3 and 4-point rule for people that have to hunt on state game and state forest land, because you never know. I always ask them, remember the first whitetail you ever shot? How happy was it? How excited was you? Well, there's 90% of the people out there hunting whitetail today want to feel that same excitement.
Yeah, I can remember every second of the first deer I shot, which was a button buck. And I've got trophy bucks in the wall that I hardly remember the story of, but that button buck I'll never forget.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's lots and lots of people that want that same excitement. I mean, it just, I'm the same way. I've got a lot of nice whitetails, and I'm blessed to no end, but, watching a grandkid or a young hunter coming out there and shooting his first whitetail, and watching the tears in his eyes, or maybe a bird landing on his arrow, and he comes in and telling you the stories about how close the squirrel was that almost jumped on his shoulder. I mean that's hunting. That's memories right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's easy these days, or it's easy. I mean, I've been guilty of it myself. In the social media era, it's easy to lose sight of the things that really matter. And sometimes you get caught up in the big buck fever or the race for inches and all that stuff. But those memories, that's hard to beat. That's some of the best stuff about hunting.
Well, I hunt there, and you mentioned inches right there. I mean, like that moose there I shot by, you see, they have to be a certain width. So you see the one cameraman, he pulls the tape out there and says, "Oh yeah, he's legal," but I shot a moose bigger than up in the Yukon, and I never put a tape measure to him. If hunting whitetail or something like that, very seldom do I. The outfitter may, or like my nephew would for sure put a tape on him. But I don't hunt for inches. I hunt for memories. I hunt for maybe a Pacific deer. I'm trying to take, and that's the challenge. But it's nice to measure animals so people know what they are. But I'm standing here right now looking at a moose and an elk and probably my biggest whitetail male, and I have no idea what they score. But I can tell you who I was hunting with, those kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great message. I mean, especially today, great message. We've got another question here, Bob, from Pharrell. I think that's how you say it. If I said that wrong, apologize. What type of deer calls do you like? If you use deer calls, do you like grunts, snort, wheezes, etc., and why?
Well, I use them all. But then, again, for somebody just to get in the woods, and I say, you got people today that sound like old McDonald's had a farm, EIL, blow, 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 blow. First of all, I want to see a deer's reaction. He's walking through the woods. I may blow it, and I may turn around and get a little soft and blow it again. That deer's going to give you some reaction that he heard the call. You have no idea what's happened to him in the last 2 or 3 days. Maybe he got his ass kicked or whatever. Or maybe he's on a doe but his tail will tuck, his ears will drop down. He may even stop and look at you, and he may walk off. Well, don't keep blowing the damn thing. The call did its job at that particular moment. He may run off, and 15, 20 minutes later, he may decide, I'm going to come down and get on that doe's track or that other buck and see what happens. But yeah, so I'll use all the calls. I don't have one specific one. Snort, wheeze, yep, I use all of that, but I want to see what a deer is doing and how he reacts to it. And, yeah, and that's part of the woodsmanship. And you definitely don't, be blowing a grunt call and when it's the first part of the season and all they're interested in is really filling their stomach up, So knowing all those things is just, all those gimmicks will work at a certain time of year. Obviously that's what keeps bass and cabela's going all the time, because people just want to buy something today to shake, rattle, or roll or blow and make a deer come and do it at their point, instead of letting the deer just, get in and out of the woods. Don't let him know that you're actually in there and hunting him. And eventually you're going to be at the right time at the right place. And learn to play the wind currents. I can't mention that enough. Actually, I'm talking not just the way the wind blows, but the wind currents, and that can be your best friend or it can be your enemy. If you got the time, if you got the time and the wind change, get the hell out of the stand. If you only got 2 or 3 days to hunt, then okay, set in the stand and enjoy yourself, and maybe you're not going to kill that big buck that you're looking for, but you're going to have to settle for something less because you only have 2 or 3 days to hunt. I'm fortunate. I can hunt every single day of the year, so I have nothing but time on my hand, and eventually it's going to happen.
Oh, for sure. We got another one here, Bob, from Buckslayer. He says, what's the most difficult lesson that you learned about hunting whitetails?
the best lesson is learn the woodsmanship and spend as much time in the woods as you possibly can. If I'm walking down a trail, there's a broken branch, and then I said, okay, it got in somebody's face. If I look over there 40 yards and there's another broken branch, I gotta ask myself what made that, what happened to that. Yeah, there's so many lessons on that. You know, if I'm standing in a tree stand, for instance, and I'm standing to get ready for a shot, I'm gonna cheat to one side. I'm right-handed, so I'm gonna cheat to my right side. So if that deer decides that he's gonna turn and go to the right, I got him. But I can, without ever moving my feet, I can come all the way to the left and still shoot that deer. So, man, there's not just one lesson that you can learn from that. Wind currents, UV, position in your tree stand. You know, I think Tom Miranda says when he sets a trap, he says, you know, trappers make good hunters because they take 100-acre farm. They're trying to get a fox to step in a silver dollar, trap. You know, man, there's so many lessons out there. Patience. If you got time to hunt, patience. Learn the season. Split your area up that you're hunting into 3 different seasons. Where are they going the first part of the season? They're going, going back to the people things. I says, when you was chasing girls in high school or whatever, I said, where did you go to meet girls? You know, first thing in the morning, you know, at the breakfast places, you know, and if you walk into a establishment and there's 15 guys and 3 girls, there's going to be a lot of fighting going on. But if you change that and there's 15 girls and 3 guys, I'm going to get lucky tonight. You know, so get the, you know, all those things add up into woodsmanship. And that's crazy to watch people today, especially on these YouTubes, that the advice that they're giving these people. I'm thinking, man, have you ever spent any time in the woods? So yeah, it's a hard one to answer by itself because there's so many lessons out there to learn. Spend time out there, you know. And I think I put it on there the other day. I says, if you ever it was on Facebook, I said, you ever get a chance to talk to Barry and Gene Winslow? I says, you know, pick their brain. I mean, the guys are master bow hunters. They hunted with recurves. They got it done. They hunted in areas where big deer were. Trying to kill a 160, 170 in Pennsylvania can be tough at times, but you go out to, you know, Montana and places like that. I mean, you know, the deer are big. Saskatchewan, they're big deer. Yeah, that's a hard one to answer all by itself. Spend time in the woods. Learn some woodsmanship.
Bob, I actually live in Montana, and I just want to let everybody know the's no deer left here. So
I would tell that story too.
Don't come to
shut them off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a good question from Mike, and we'll see if you remember. What was your first compound bow?
My first compound bow was a Jennings T-Star. Yeah.
If you had to guess, what year would that have been approximately?
Oh my goodness sakes. I think I shot my first whitetail in 1967 with a bear takedown. I can't remember the year on that. You might be able to find it because all the bows, just as I got done with them, I put on the wall whatever arrows I was using at the time, broadheads and stuff like that, and I donated all of them to Bass Pro. They're putting them in different stores with my picture under it. But to say that, I think that Jennings T-Star, I can't remember exactly, it shot like 160 feet a second or something like that. And then I had my last one on there. I think it was a Bass Pro one that shot like 320. And I asked the people, and I said, okay, what's the difference between the Jennings T-Star and this one here? You know, and of course they talk about speed and all this kind of stuff. I said, you still got to draw it. You still got to aim it. You got to know the distance, and you got to control your heart. You know, all those things have to come together at the same time. And that's what's nice about archery hunting, and going back to, you know, Gene and Barry about crossbows. you see a lot of people coming in the crossbows today, and it's easier. But the one thing about the difference between a vertical bow versus a crossbow is when to draw. A lot of people get busted. I did a video one time, and I'm standing up, and the deer caught me into a draw, or started as I picked my bow up. He caught me, and I drew anyway. And the guy said, "I can't believe you drew on that bow." I said, "Well, the deer caught you. What's he going to do?" In this case, he took 2 or 3 steps. He looked back, and I shot him. I said, if I'd let him take 2 or 3 steps and then drew, then he's going to run off. So all those things come together on learn to kill some does first before you think you're you become a trophy hunter. Learn what that arrow does. I can get stepped on this one, but I'm not a fan of mechanical broadheads. I like the old traditional broadheads that you sharpen up and they put big holes into them and good blood trails. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I ever did answer that question, that guy I wanted or not, but
yeah. What was your first bow? And I think we answered that. So
yeah.
What about, we got a rifle question. What's your favorite whitetail rifle and caliber?
Well, I go back to after the 300 and when 300 short mags came out, which is a little less powder, and so it's basically a 300 Winchester short mag, 180 grain ballistic tip. And I had one guy in a seminar. He said, "That's overkill on a deer, isn't it?" And I said, "Well, how do I actually overkill anything?" So when I say that, I shoot everything with the same. When I shot 1,000 yards, I had a guy here that we shot 1,000 yards. I want to know what that bullet's doing. I'm not changing from a 180 to a 160 because I'm hunting whitetail. Then I'm going to bump it up to a 200 grain because I'm going to hunt brown bear or whatever. So I shoot a 180 ballistic tip for just about everything out there. And a lot of bullets today are made to break bones. A lot of times if you draw a shot and you move it back too far, you got a hole in, hole out, and the animal keeps up with the herd. I put that ballistic tip into him. If you've ever shot a milk jug with a ballistic tip, it blows up. Well, you can imagine if I happen to miss the shot and it gets back into his stomach or whatever, he's sick. He has to lay down. Don't give me the second shot. So that's my favorite rifle. And I still have my first one that my dad ever gave me, which was a Model 70 pre-war 30-06. I actually took that up to New Brunswick or in Manitoba. I shot a moose with that. My dad had bought a 375 when I was 14 years old. I asked him what he was going to do with that gun, and he said, "I'm going to kill a bear with it someday." He killed a bear when I opened up my bear camp, and I took that up in Alaska and did another float trip with that and shot a big brown bear or a grizzly bear. That was up in Utica. That's where they draw the line between brown bears and grizzly bears. Mm-hmm. So again, every time I take one of my dad's firearms out, his memory's still alive. He's still here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yep. I got a few rifles and shotguns that have been passed down to me and like using them for the exact same reason. Reminds you of that person?
Yeah, I got an over and under Winchester I bought when I was 14 years old. And I call it my non-smoking money. And I paid $300 for that shotgun. I still have that today. Yeah. In fact, I took it out here just in September, October on ringnecks and shot some ringnecks with it. Yeah. I still have my Model 12 too. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Bob, one of the things that we do, Dan and I, is we have tree stands that we set up and take down a lot, move around to, like you said, kind of get the jump on the deer, surprise them where they don't think people are going to be. So we got a question here that says, you were talking about hunting from a tree stand. What was your approach? Did you move some stands around? Did you have a bunch of different permanent stands? How did you pick your tree stand locations?
Well, as pressure comes on and more people get in the woods, I like a portable tree stand that I can take in, and I do very little trimming. I want to get in there. I don't want people to walk through and say, oh my God, look at the shooting lane. Well, a shooting lane is like a dirt hole to a fox, a dirt hole, whether he made it or a human made it. After he's been pinched one time, he learns to stay away from it. So I don't want people to be able to walk down through the woods and say, oh my God, look at there. Somebody's hunting here. So I try to, I take very few, I take a limb here, a limb there. I make shooting holes where deer can't get through, without, and then I fine tune it. I may set up there to one time, and it might take 2 or 3 days to fine tune it to where I actually want to be. Things change from one season to another. So I have places that I would start, and when I was running a deer camp, I have my, places that I call them my, this is a great stand. I put it in there every year, but then I may move it. I did that. Same as a bear stand. I mean, as long as the guy was doing his job in a stand, but if he was up there messing around and clicking his release or making noise or whatever, and the bear circled and got behind him, then I had to move it. So yeah, I like, and in fact, sometimes I'll even use a climbing stand as a portable stand, because I can make it fit almost any tree. I like step sticks to go up and come back down again. So, and saying that too, there's a lot of times if a tree stand has to be moved, I won't move it in the daytime. If I'm going to hunt that the next day, I'll go in there at 12 o'clock at night and move that stand and be ready to hunt it in the morning or in the evening time. That's a question people always ask. When should I get into a stand? I want to get in that stand early enough that Mother Nature comes alive. The birds start to sing, squirrels are playing around. We do that with the grandkids. If they sit on a pond and the peepers are there, and I said, okay, I want you to slow your body down, and I want you to listen to this, and Grandpa's going to walk around the pond. Can you tell me where he is just on Mother Nature's noise? Well, if Mother Nature shuts down when you're moving into a stand, it takes you, half to 3/4 an hour for Mother Nature to get back to where it's singing again. Well, you don't think that mature deer knows where in the heck you are? What caused that Mother Nature to shut down? So, and same thing coming back out. Sit there until dark, and then come back out again. That's how I like to hunt anyway. Yep.
I appreciate you sharing all the stories, Dan. I think that was the majority of the questions we had. So, Bob, I just want to thank you for taking the time to come on here. Really appreciate your time, all the stories, and a lot of great questions from the audience. There's a bunch of people on, so definitely people excited to hear from you.
Very
well.
appreciative.
You guys keep up the good job, and I appreciate Dan and everybody that was on there. I like listening to you guys and listen to your strategies, and that's people that are out there doing it and are successful time after time. You may want to pay attention to what's going on, and then go out and test it in your own area, see if it works for you. Yep.
Dan,
thanks,
any
Bob.
last words?
Just thanks a lot, Bob. I really appreciate you coming on. I've always admired you. I always admired your humbleness. That when you've been around a lot of hunters and stuff, you're always the quiet guy who gets it done. And everybody else is the boisterous guys that brag and stuff. But watching you over the years, you're not a braggart or anything. If somebody asks you a question, you try to help them. But you've always just been a great role model for the sport. And I think for many generations on, beyond just your family, everybody's going to remember you as an icon of this sport. I really appreciate you.
Well, yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, that'll do it. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Thanks again for your time, sir. And we'll see everybody next Tuesday, 7 Central, for another episode. Catch you everybody then.